This morning, as lawmakers prepare to view the Department of Justice's unredacted files on Jeffrey Epstein, new questions about Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's relationship with the deceased convicted sex offender.
Really? So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
Now, switching gears here, this situation is just wild. In a shocking twist, Trump's leading lawyers in his Georgia case have decided to quit altogether. They literally just up and walked away, filing emergency motions at 11:30 at night on January 3rd, 2026, just right before a really important hearing that was set for 2 days later. They simply stated that they were done, couldn't handle it anymore, and were bailing on the defense like thieves in the night, not even waiting until morning to let Trump know they were leaving him in the lurch.
The Justice Department's top antitrust official, Gil Slater, has resigned less than a year after being appointed by President Donald Trump. Slater, who served as Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division since March, announced her departure on X, saying it was the honor of a lifetime but filled with sadness. She didn't give a specific reason, but reports say she chose to resign rather than face firing this week.
And then there's the situation with Trump. His lead lawyers just quit, which speaks volumes about how dire things are for him at the moment. What's really surprising is the timing of it all. They decided to walk away at 11:30 at night. It makes you wonder why they would choose that hour to file emergency motions because they wanted out before the hearing. They knew they had to let the judge know they were stepping back before the courtroom drama unfolded. They clearly didn't want to continue representing him or be associated with this case any longer. Filing motions at night was their way to officially make a break before having to face a judge. And that's the crucial part of it all.
Tensions had been building, with Bondi accusing Slater of defying orders and bypassing the chain of command. Vice President J.D. Vance, who once backed Slater as a senior advisor, apparently grew frustrated when she claimed his support to colleagues. Slater's tenure saw internal drama, like last summer's firing of 2 deputies over a dispute on the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Juniper Networks merger.
It's quite a situation unfolding with Trump's legal team. His top lawyers just decided to quit. And the reasons they gave are pretty serious. They mentioned ethical concerns, saying the evidence against Trump is totally overwhelming and that the case is basically unwinnable. Those are their exact words, unwinnable. That's a strong indication that things aren't looking good for him. When his own attorneys take a look at the evidence and conclude they can't defend their client anymore, it paints a clear picture. They felt that continuing to represent Trump would mean compromising their own ethical duties, because the chances of him being convicted seem pretty high.
The investigative committees of the House have been engaged in an impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump's efforts to solicit foreign interference in the 2020 elections, efforts that compromised our national security and threatened the integrity of our elections.
It's the kind of moment where lawyers look at the reality of the situation and realize it's just impossible to win. Now, there's some insider gossip that adds another twist to this whole drama. Apparently, Trump fired these lawyers after they pushed back against pursuing unethical defense strategies. It seems like he wanted them to argue things that simply weren't right. So, when they stood their ground and said, no, we can't do that, they ended up either being let go or choosing to leave to avoid the pressure to do something unethical. Either way, it's left his defense team in disarray. This isn't the first time we've seen this kind of turnover in his legal squad. There have been others who've walked away: Tim Parloratori, Jim Trusty, John Roelli, and more.
Why did you leave the former president's legal team?
The real reason is because there are certain individuals that made defending the president much harder than it needed to be. In particular, there's one individual who works for him, Boris Epstein, who had really done everything he could to try to block us, to prevent us from doing what we could to defend the president.
Multiple lawyers have opted out of representing Trump because he makes demands that just aren't reasonable. They find themselves in a tough spot dealing with strategies that don't make sense or ignoring sound legal advice. Even those who are willing to take on controversial cases have their limits, and it looks like a lot of Trump's lawyers are hitting that wall. You know, even lawyers who usually defend folks in tough spots have their breaking points. And it seems Donald Trump has hit that wall with several attorneys.
Now, notable development this week, Tim Parlatore, one of Donald Trump's key attorneys, announced he is leaving the team. Now, in addition to working on the January 6th investigation, he also played a key role in the Mar-a-Lago documents probe, including organizing additional searches at Trump Tower, Bedminster, and an office in Palm Beach, as well as a Florida storage unit.
It's early 2026, and as we gear up for the midterms, you'd think Trump would be all in on crafting his agenda and ensuring Republican victories. Instead, he's stuck in a major legal pickle down in Georgia. With his legal team crumbling, Trump now has to scramble to find new attorneys, which is pretty much the last thing he needs right now. His top lawyers have thrown in the towel on the Georgia case, declaring the evidence just too daunting and the chances of winning pretty much non-existent. We're witnessing a bit of chaos on his defense team as multiple lawyers back out, leaving him with less and less effective legal support as the RICO case marches on.
To defend the president, and ultimately it got to a point where it's difficult enough fighting against DOJ, and in this case, special counsel, but when you also have people within the tent that are also trying to undermine you, block you, and really make it so that I can't do what I know that I need to do as a lawyer.
This circumstance is nothing short of a disaster. It's the kind of situation that signals real trouble for someone facing serious legal challenges. When you see a defense team falling apart like this, it's alarming. Looking deeper into why these lawyers are leaving gives us some insights into Trump's ongoing legal issues, not just in Georgia, but beyond. It's not simply a matter of having lawyers quit. It reflects a troubling pattern where Trump's behavior is driving them away. What we're looking at is either Trump firing attorneys who refuse to bend to his wishes or having professional lawyers step away because they can't ethically stand by him anymore. So let's rewind to January 3rd, 2026. It was late around 11:30 at night when Boris Epstein and Todd Blanche filed emergency motions to withdraw from the case. And trust me, these were far from friendly resignations. We're talking urgent legal language here. It's a clear signal that they needed out of that situation immediately. So it turns out Trump's lawyers made a pretty dramatic decision lately. They basically said they need to bow out of the case before the next hearing. When attorneys reach that point, it usually means they've realized they just can't ethically keep representing their client. The reason they gave for stepping back, well, they cited mountains of evidence suggesting guilt and expressed concerns about crossing ethical lines if they continued. Let's break that down a bit. When they talk about overwhelming evidence of guilt, they mean the prosecutors have a solid case against Trump. We're not talking about weak or questionable evidence here. It's rock solid and shows that he's likely guilty of the charges. After sifting through all this proof, the lawyers concluded that the case is essentially unwinnable, which they explicitly stated in their filings. Unwinnable, not just tough or challenging. This means the path to a not guilty verdict is nearly non-existent, and it's looking like Trump could be facing a conviction. Now, the part about ethical concerns is quite telling, too. It hints that Trump might have been pushing his lawyers to engage in unethical behavior. He likely wanted them to pursue a defense strategy that just didn't align with their professional responsibilities. When they said they couldn't do that, they made it clear they didn't want to be part of any unethical actions. So they decided to walk away from the case. As for Trump's reaction, sources say he responded by firing these lawyers right after they refused to take on those shady defense strategies. This pattern isn't new, by the way. There have been multiple instances where lawyers like Tim Parlatore, Jim Trusty, and John Rowelli have quit while representing Trump. It seems to be a recurring theme where Trump has unreasonable demands and wants his lawyers to do things that simply aren't part of their job. This really sheds light on how Trump views his defense and the role of his legal team. It's clear he thinks they should just follow his lead, no matter the ethical implications. It's quite something to see Trump's lawyers walking away from his case, isn't it? They seem to believe that their loyalty to him should come before any legal or ethical responsibilities, but that's just not how it works in the legal world. Lawyers have specific obligations and ethical standards they need to uphold. They can't just jump at every whim of their client. especially if it goes against those rules. So, when Trump insists they bend the rules for him, it's no surprise they decide to quit. Now, this puts Trump in a tight spot, especially with the serious RICO case he has going on in Georgia. We're talking about election interference here, which is a big deal, and the charges carry some hefty potential penalties. With his top lawyers quitting, Trump now faces the daunting task of finding new ones right in the thick of this high-stakes situation. It's tough and disruptive, and honestly, not the best sign for his defense. Timing plays a crucial role here, too. These lawyers chose to leave just before an important hearing with Judge Sullivan, a temporary restraining order hearing, no less. It makes you wonder why they jumped ship right then. Probably they didn't want to be involved in whatever was about to unfold in that courtroom, or perhaps they realized they'd be forced to compromise their ethical responsibilities if they stuck around. So they decided to bail before things got messy. This situation reflects a bigger issue with Trump's approach to the legal system. He seems to overlook the boundaries lawyers must operate within. It's as if he thinks hiring a lawyer means that person has to be entirely at his beck and call. But that's just not the case. Lawyers have duties to the court and the justice system, and if they're put in a position where they have to violate those duties, they can't just go along with it. Things are definitely getting intense for Trump as we step into early 2026, especially with the midterms approaching. It's honestly hard to believe that his unpopularity is not just affecting him, but also dragging down other Republican candidates in special elections. Recently, we saw how his behavior was so problematic that it caused a Fox News host to walk off the set, which really says a lot about the current climate around him. And let's not forget that secret audio recording where he openly admitted to sharing classified documents with people who shouldn't have seen them. Now, to add to all of this, his top lawyers have decided to quit his Georgia case because the evidence against him is just too strong, making it feel like there's no chance to win. With all these pieces coming together, it's clear that he's in serious trouble, both legally and politically. What's especially concerning is that Trump is not just facing legal chaos. He's also alienating those who are meant to support him. As the Republicans really need to be united and focused on getting candidates elected, he's instead caught up in a legal disaster in Georgia, scrambling to find new lawyers while his defense crumbles. This is bound to snag his attention and time, pulling him away from helping fellow Republicans out as the political atmosphere shifts heading into the 2026 elections. The real kicker here is what's next for the Georgia case. With new lawyers stepping in, his defense is going to be disrupted. It'll take time for them to catch up and formulate a new strategy. Meanwhile, the prosecutors aren't slowing down. The case is moving forward and more evidence just keeps piling up. So Trump finds himself at a disadvantage, weakened when he needs a solid legal backing the most. To break it down clearly, here's the first key point. On January 3rd, 2026, at 11:30 at night, Trump's lead lawyers in the Georgia racketeering case decided to bail right before an important hearing. Boris Epstein and Todd Blanche filed emergency motions to withdraw from the case, clearly showing how urgent and serious they felt about the situation. This wasn't a gradual exit. This was a sudden decision, giving us insight into just how dire things have become for Trump. So it seems Trump's lead lawyers felt the need to get out fast. Like they were in a hurry to make sure the judge knew they were quitting before the next hearing. And here's the kicker, they said it outright. They believe there's overwhelming evidence of guilt in the case, and they even called it unwinnable. That's some pretty strong language. When lawyers say a case is unwinnable, they're not just calling it tough. They're saying there's almost no chance of coming out on top. It's like Trump's own legal team looked through all the evidence and decided he's likely heading for a conviction with no real way to dodge it. That's a pretty big deal and definitely catastrophic for his legal strategy. On top of all that, they also voiced ethical concerns. They couldn't, in good conscience, keep representing him. They claimed that continuing would mean they'd have to breach their professional obligations. It sounds like Trump might have been asking them to take some unethical paths in their defense, and they simply said, "No way, we can't do that." So they walked away. This isn't the first time we've seen a lawyer bail on Trump either. There's quite a list. Tim Parloratori, Jim Trusty, and John Raleigh, just to name a few. Multiple attorneys have opted out of representing him, and it seems the common thread is Trump firing them when they refuse to follow through with unethical tactics. There's clearly a pattern here, with Trump pushing his lawyers to act against professional standards and then letting them go when they push back. Now, this situation is particularly crucial because Trump is right in the thick of a major legal battle in Georgia. We're talking about a serious RICO case related to election interference. It's one of the most pressing issues he's facing right now. And with his top lawyers quitting, he's in a tight spot. That means he has to scramble to find new lawyers and rebuild his legal team. It's pretty clear that Trump is facing a tough time with his legal and political situation. With his top lawyers walking away from his Georgia case, they've clearly stated they believe the case is unwinnable. That's a big deal because it leaves him in a seriously weakened position, which only serves to benefit the prosecutors. At the same time, he's dealing with other issues like that secret audio recording where he admitted to showing classified documents to people who weren't authorized to see them. There's also been a string of election losses being blamed on his unpopularity, plus a Fox News host stepping off the set due to his behavior. All these things happening together make it hard to ignore that Trump is in some real trouble. His approach to handling his defense seems a bit misguided. It looks like he believes he can just dictate to his lawyers how to proceed, pushing them to follow whatever defense strategy he thinks will work, regardless of whether it's ethical or even makes sense. Loyalty appears to come first for him, even over what lawyers are bound to do by their professional responsibilities. But the legal system doesn't operate that way. Lawyers have a duty to uphold ethical standards and obligations to the court. If Trump is pushing them to go against those principles, they simply can't do it. When he demands behavior that crosses ethical lines, lawyers tend to quit, and that's exactly what's happening here. This whole situation raises some eyebrows about what exactly Trump is asking these lawyers to do. The fact that multiple attorneys have either quit or been let go because they refuse to pursue unethical defenses suggests he might be looking for something quite serious. So serious that these professionals would rather leave their jobs than comply. Now, thinking about the Georgia case, having new lawyers means his defense is going to be further weakened. These fresh faces will have to climb a steep learning curve to get up to speed on the details of the case and come up with their own strategy. It's going to be an uphill battle for sure. Trump's been in a tough spot lately, finding himself having to start over with new lawyers right in the middle of a major case. This isn't just a minor hiccup. He's at a disadvantage as these new folks won't be as prepared as his previous legal team who have been working on this case for months. Meanwhile, the prosecutors are not slowing down. They continue to push forward, presenting evidence and making progress in the case, leaving Trump scrambling to rebuild his legal defense. The timing couldn't be worse either. We're talking about early 2026, just before the midterms, an important time when Trump should be focused on his agenda and rallying support for Republican candidates. But instead, he's caught up in a legal mess that's soaking up his time and energy, distracting him from the political landscape he needs to navigate. This raises some big questions about Trump's presidency and his ability to govern. If he's struggling to maintain good working relationships with his own lawyers and causing them to quit because of ethical concerns, it makes me wonder how he'll manage relationships with Congress or his cabinet. Demanding loyalty and pushing for unethical behavior from his attorneys doesn't really make for a solid foundation for collaboration throughout the government. The bottom line is that his lead lawyers in Georgia walked away from the case, declaring it unwinnable and saying they couldn't ethically continue to represent him. It's not just a one-off. A number of his lawyers have left or been let go for similar reasons. Now, Trump is left searching for new legal representation, which has thrown a wrench into his defense in Georgia, all while he's juggling other legal and political issues. Things like classified documents, election setbacks, and tensions with media allies. This chain of events clearly shows that Trump is facing serious troubles, and it looks like things are only getting tougher as we approach the midterms in 2026.